Did he feel the addiction to be ready for training camp and to have an off-season program? And when he was allowed to relax or not participate in any of the off-season activities, when he was allowed to have a Krispy Kreme, did he all of a sudden say, nah, I don't feel strong physically or mentally. I need something. I need to go after something. Did 2 months away from the game say to him, I want to retire after winning a Super Bowl? And did his ego and his brain write a check that he will not be able to cash physically? Does he believe he's still in a position to be a top 2 quarterback? Was he jealous that Aaron Rodgers was coming back? Was he upset that Deshaun Watson was being approached by the Buccaneers as a possible trade partner? We didn't hear much from Tom Brady except my place is on a football field. Well, that's true, and I've been around a bunch of aging players who say the same thing. They can't figure out what to do. It happens with executives, too. I told you it happened to me. It took me 2 years to unwind after leaving Major League Baseball. 2 years to find a new place, a new sense of purpose. It does not happen overnight. So we call it team doctor. How bad? It's broken. You can't swing on it. Otherwise, you're risking way more injury. You got to sit him. How long? It's going to be 12 weeks. Wait, why can't you tell me in months? Because months sounds worse. How old is your baby? 23 months. You mean like almost 2 years old? People mess around with that in order to make things seem better. He'll miss 8 to 12 weeks. That sounds like, all right, he'll be back soon. We would always do that, right? That's a good announcement. He'll miss 2 to 3 months. Oh, my God, that's half the season. So we sit down, and then we call the owner and say, Houston, we got a small problem. We're without Tatis. How long? 80 games? Half the season? Can he come back sooner? Maybe. Should we operate on his shoulder in the meantime? What a great idea. He won't do surgery on his shoulder. Say that 5 times. 4, 6, 9. He won't have surgery on his shoulder, and we can't make him have surgery. But why don't we just do it now that he's going to be out with the wrist and he can rehab both, and then we're good? Because we've got 12 more years with this guy. So the Padres met as owners. They consulted both sets of their medical records. And then the fans and the media said the lockout is to blame. And I want to give you this to please wrap neatly in a bow, put in the back of your mind, and don't ever forget. If you think for 1 minute that the Padres were not in contact with Tatis during the course of the lockout, and that's the reason why they didn't discover about the wrist, then you just don't understand what's happening in the real world of team ownership and operation. No matter lockout or no lockout, the rules are when you are injured during the offseason, you call your trainer. We can't know. Once we find out that there's an accident, we're going to send someone to the Dominican to check on Tatis if we can't get him to come to the States. That makes sense. We want eyes on the player. To lockout, we're not allowed to do that. Of course you are. There's plenty of people we can send, plenty of ways to get a doctor to see a player during the course of the lockout. We heard all these players say, oh, I had no one paying attention to my rehab. I had no one knowing what I was doing. I have no way to keep track of anything. All the managers were saying, how do I know how people are feeling? There is constant communication even during a lockout, all back-channeled. If Tatis had gotten hurt and admitted he got hurt, the Padres would have acted immediately. But now, Mayfield decided to go public in one of the most bizarre comments I've seen, postings by a player. Now, keep in mind, he is in the final year of his rookie deal. You get a 4-year deal. You get a 5th-year option that can be picked up by the team. The Browns picked up the option. He could still be franchise tagged after this, or he could sign an extension, or they could let him go after this year. Would the Browns want Mayfield at $18 million as a backup quarterback? Are the Browns looking to trade Mayfield to a team that needs a quarterback that's not willing to take Deshaun Watson and reward that team by getting Baker Mayfield? Do the Browns know already that Watson prefers the Browns to the Panthers, the Falcons, or the Saints? This we don't know. But Baker Mayfield didn't want to waste any time, so he did a post that talked about the past 4 years have been nothing short of truly life-changing. I like that. Not just life-changing, truly life-changing, since I heard my name called in a draft to go to Cleveland. This is not a message with hidden meaning. I'm not sure why you have to say that. That's like saying, to be honest. Well, you don't need to say that if you're being honest. If there's no hidden meaning, then don't say that it's not a message with hidden meaning. This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing my family and me. Correct grammar. Some people say my family and I. But you finish the sentence, right? This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing me. You take out my family. That's how you know the difference between using me and I is you take out one side of it and then read the sentence, and if it doesn't read right, then it's incorrect. This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing I. Well, that doesn't sound right. So you say this is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing me. We have made many memories. I have no clue what happens next, which is the meaning behind the silence I've had during the duration of this process. What process? Are we talking about the process of teams making trades, teams signing players? I didn't realize that players shouldn't be silent during those times. Your job is to play when you're told to play. If you're told to start, you start. If you're told to be on the bench, you're on the bench. Nobody's guaranteed playing time. He then said, I can only control what I can, which is trusting in God's plan throughout this process. Don't get me started on the God thing, but I do have a few questions for those religious people out there. And I've spoken to some players about this. A little detour here, Coca. I've spoken to some players about this concept when they thank God right after they do something good on the field. I've just never understood that because I'm not sure that I want to pray to a God who's got time to worry about Baker Mayfield's completion percentage. We got wars, we got poverty, we have death, we have crime. We have crazy crime in New York City right now, random crime in New York City. I'd like to think God is a little more focused on that and not just letting human beings, which is the argument I get, he's a more macro God. He's got the big picture in mind. He's going to let human beings who he created in his image or whatever the case may be, he's going to let them be them. And if they all kill each other, they'll kill each other. But I really would like to see Baker Mayfield not throw any interceptions. Freddie posts on Instagram. I doubt he calls Alex Anthopoulos to say he's not coming back because once Anthopoulos traded for Olsen, that was the end of Freeman in Atlanta, which begs the question, did Anthopoulos call Freddie, which I think he did, and said, hey, Freddie, last chance, we're about to trade for Olsen. Any chance you want to take our deal of 5 years, even though it's out in the media that they didn't call Freddie? If I'm a team that's had Freddie as the face of the franchise, I'm definitely calling Freddie. And I'm going to say, this is it. Last moment. Freddie declines. Now the more important question. Did Freddie have 6 years from L.A. when he declined the 5 years from Atlanta? Or did he take the chance that he'd be willing to go 5 years from L.A. instead of 5 years from Atlanta? And here's where the chess game happens when you're signing free agents. Here's where the back channels go when you're talking to players, you're talking to other agents, you're trying to figure out, you're speaking to other teams, but you're not engaging in collusion, but you're trying to get as much information as you can, and then you're calling members of the media to try to see what they know. Because here's what you can have happen if you're Freddie Freeman. You can't turn down the Braves 5 years and then have nothing but 3 and 4 years from the other teams. Which means that Freddie knew exactly where he was with L.A. So that means the only thing left to negotiate was the notional amount. Because he had the 6 years which he needed in order to save face by telling Atlanta no. But then he had to get to the 160 that he wanted. But then my whole theory is called into question because the rumored size of the deal is 162. So does that mean that he had 160 elsewhere and the Dodgers gave him the extra $2 million, maybe the tax equalization because the Tampa Bay Rays were going to give him 150 And so he needed 162 from the Dodgers. Rough math, very rough because it's off the top of my head because there's no state tax in Florida and there is in California, which is roughly, let's just say it's an extra 10% of taxes. So 148 would be the equivalent of 162. So maybe Tampa offered him 148, and so the Dodgers had to offer him 162. Or maybe he was always going to go home, was never going to go to the AL East Rays, didn't want to play in front of 17 people. Because Freddie, of all people, is not Chris Bryant. So it's all a mystery. Freddie Freeman to the Dodgers, the only thing we know for sure. And the Dodgers went from 6-1 to 5-1 to win the World Series. One player shouldn't do that, so there's no value. Don't bet the Dodgers to win the World Series. But, man, their lineup's good. MLB and MLBPA agreed that they will extend his administrative leave through April 16th. That's about a month from now. They're hoping that after April 4th, they will be able to get Trevor Bauer into a room and talk to him. Once this was announced, you heard the normal drivel from Rachel Luba saying that Mr. Bauer is cooperating with the MLB investigation, looks forward to resolving this matter. He's preparing for the season. And keep in mind, administrative leave is not a disciplinary action, nor does it reflect the league's finding. We are keeping that in mind, Rachel, because the suspension is what we heard on Nothing Personal about a year ago almost. A suspension is what comes after administrative leave, because I promise you, administrative leave does not end with him walking into the Dodgers clubhouse. Now, Dave Roberts got into it a little bit when he was on a show. He went on the Rich Eisen show, and he's being asked the normal question, what are your plans with Trevor Bauer? That is the $64,000 question, or the $40 million question, actually. And the reason why it's such an important question is that when the Dodger players and the clubhouse isn't going to welcome a player, you got to make a decision. And 28 teams will not know what to do with that decision. The Dodgers are not one of them. The Dodgers are going to move past Trevor Bauer completely. They're going to pay him to go away. There is no chance that Trevor Bauer wears a Dodgers uniform again. Dave Roberts isn't going to say that directly, even though there was some confusion whether he did. He did not say that directly. That will not be his announcement to make. That will come from Stan Kasten, the president and CEO of the Dodgers, or it will come from Andrew Friedman, the president of baseball operations. They will not leave Dave Roberts to give you that piece of news because that will be approved by the owner. You do not release a player. Side note, when you release a player who's making money, the GM of a team does not have the right to do that without speaking to the president of the team and then the owner of the team. Now, if it's a player making $250,000, we have a separate budget that calls for sort of inactive, we call it dead money, like dead cap money, except there's no cap in baseball other than the CBT. So if it's a small amount of money, we'll allow that. But anything that has seven figures or more, if you're releasing a player and that player is still owed an amount of money, for us it was always seven figures or more, 1 million or more, you are not allowed to do that without talking to me. And then Jeffrey. So therefore, there's no way Trevor Bauer gets released without the mention, the 469. There's no way Trevor Bauer gets released without the implicit written consent of the owner and the president. So why can't MLB decide? The answer is they could decide, but they're going to wait to talk to him. And they don't want to talk to him now because he's not going to answer questions because he's still being investigated. Yes, he is.